Welcome back. The IFP marked its 50th anniversary with a big celebration rally in Ulundi this past weekend. Delivering the keynote address, the party president Velenkosini Hlabisa emphasized a commitment to empowering communities through self-reliance and the affirmation of cultural identity. Hlabisa vowed to support the embattled Ithala SOC Bank. Let's now speak to the party's president, Velenkosini Hlabisa, who's joining us this morning. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. And I know we're speaking to you in your capacity as the leader of the IFP, but every now and then during the interview, I'll be referring to you as minister, and I apologize. Just beforehand. But I want to go back to, you were around about 10 years old when the IFP was launched, and as a cultural movement at the time. Can you take us back to that moment? Do you have any recollection about what the IFP as a cultural movement at the time would have meant to the community members of KwaZulu-Natal?
Good morning, Aldrin, and the viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Indeed, I was 10 years when the IFP as a cultural organization was founded, and at my age of 13 years, I became a member of the Youth Brigade. At that time, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi was the only voice within South Africa. I was still young, but there was something I was understanding. I came to know there are various population groups in South Africa, like Indians, coloreds, and whites, other than blacks. And in my community, in a school where I was going, there was none of these people. And I came to understand at one time when I was in town that there are areas where we are not allowed to enter, but people of other color were allowed to. That is how I became conscious that there is something not right in our society, and I grew and accumulated more understanding as I grew up to the age I was beyond being a teenager, and to the age when I went to high school and went to university, up to when I came to full life. Outside the university life, I found the IFP being relevant, being consistent in its messaging right from the time of the deep apartheid, when none could pronounce the names of Madiba, Oliver Tambo, ANC, or PAC.
Yeah, so you would have been, or you are now, the second president or second leader of the IFP since the formation of the movement, which became a political party under Mangosuthu Buthelezi. But I quickly want to go to a passage in a book that was written by Mandla Langa, Nelson Mandela, Dare Not to Linger, the presidential years. And in the book, he makes reference to the Long Walk to Freedom. This is the autobiography of former President Nelson Mandela. And he says this: Mandela himself explains to Stengel, this is Richard Stengel, who collaborated with him on that book, that Buthelezi did not honor arrangements which were made between Inkatha and the ANC, and our people got annoyed with him. You see, Inkatha was started by the ANC to work as a legal arm of the ANC inside the country, and there was an arrangement to that effect. But Mandela states, once Inkatha was now established, Buthelezi decided to break away from the ANC and to develop it as his own political organization, and that soured relations. Is that your recollection of what happened?
The IFP, as I said when I was addressing the rally, was established with the approval of the ANC in exile, as Oliver Tambo gave an approval to its establishment. And it raised the colors of the ANC for the first time during that period. Things went wrong in the meeting that was held in London in 1979, where the ANC insisted that violence must be used in order to wage the struggle. And Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi and the IFP said it will not be easy to use violence in South Africa. If you look at the army, the apartheid government was commanding, and that is why parties had to operate in exile. Within the country, there was no way. And that is where differences started in terms of strategy, and then insults followed against Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi and the IFP, and then we have parted ways between the two organizations, but we never lost the mandate of standing firm that we won't get into any negotiations until Madiba and all prisoners are released and all political parties in exile are brought back into our country. Buthelezi, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi will have agreed to enter into negotiations and form a certain kind of government at that time, as he had blocked the independence of the ex-Trial KwaZulu government, but he made it a condition that under no circumstance I will get into any discussion until you release Madiba and other prisoners.
Yeah, and that also Nelson Mandela does acknowledge that there was that voice that was persistent and consistent around the release of former President Nelson Mandela before that negotiations was to take place. But there's another part as well, again in the book, and this is in reference to the IFP's collaboration with the National Party at the time, the government of the day. This is now speaking about pre-democracy. And this was what President Nelson Mandela had to say in the National Assembly, or the chambers at the time. He says that the United Democratic Front, now the ANC, he says that members must remember that when the then President, Mr. de Klerk, was asked in July 1991 whether he had given the IFP 8 million rand plus 250,000 rand, he said that they had, but that he had to stop it. What's your understanding of that relationship between the National Party as well as the IFP, including the National Party offering training through state apparatus to IFP members?
The relationship between the IFP and the National Party, as you rightly say, he admitted, but he said he stopped it. For whatever reason, he wanted to advance that money and he eventually decided to stop it. It is him who knew such. You see, Aldrin, we are going to use this year to make people know how the IFP stood against the apartheid regime. There were many times where Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi was at loggerhead with the prime ministers during the apartheid time, not agreeing in how they were treating black people. During the times of violence, it was a different story. Anybody, Alvin, even yourself as you are seated in the studio, if someone is attacking you, if someone is killing your families, you can use anything in front of you to defend yourself. It's a different matter. The times of violence, and any party would not fold its arms. And it was an unfortunate period in the history of black people in our country. Thanks God, when we engaged, it came to an end. But during times of violence, anybody can use anything in his or her disposal to defend himself or herself. Thanks God, that period has passed.
Yeah, I think people of Wipatong, Togoza, Soweto, and other areas, including Shobane, would disagree and say that actually it was the IFP that was at the center of the violence that was playing out at the time, and the black-on-black violence as well. And I wonder, as the current leader of the IFP, do you think that the IFP owes black South Africans specifically an apology for the role that it played for that black-on-black violence?
After request, just give me another time, another day,
okay,
if you don't have sufficient time now, because there is truth which is not spoken, how the Boipatong violence started. An African lady was killed and cut the stomach pregnant alive, because she was impregnated by an IFP member. And the people who killed him, they said, we want to see the gaja inside you, cutting the stomach alive, killing a child alive. That was the trigger of that violence. It was an unfortunate thing. You see, Aldrin, in any instance, a trigger of violence result to unimaginable outcome. The violence that happened between the blacks in South Africa, there is no one political party that owes apology, but IFP and ANC, I've said it several times, we owe apology to the people of South Africa. The first person who died through necklace was an IFP member, and who owes apology to that IFP family. IFP lost many leaders compared to ANC leaders in South Africa. Out of 20,000 people who died during violence, the IFP lost more than 12,000. They did not kill themselves. Who owes apology to them? Not the IFP. Now, both the ANC and IFP owe to apologize to the people of South Africa that there was an unfortunate scenario, and we need to close the chapter by speaking frankly, visiting families who were affected. We have families, both ANC and IFP, who lost their members, who are still living with scars, and we owe apology to them, both of us.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. I think maybe we should create that opportunity to have that discussion with both the ANC as well as the IFP, maybe right here on the show, and see whether we can get to that part where there's an apology afforded to the nation from both the ANC as well as the IFP side. But thank you so much for making time for us.